happened 3 months ago, far outside of statute. And you guys argue that it's the mishandling of evidence and you throw it into a fucking court case or something. And then the DOJ makes a determination. But I do everything right. I document everything. I took it at this time, this date, this time, utilize in this case for the sake of, you know, getting or completing a ballistics test. And then see how the DOJ rules.
I have an opinion on that.
What's the opinion?
I think it's going to be abused by officers that look at that and go, well, I can just take evidence out of an old evidence locker for X, Y, and Z reason, and then skip the documentation, and then we won't know exactly what's going on, because that'll give blanket permission for officers who don't necessarily have the cataloging skills to go through and make sure that that is done correctly.
You're not wrong. I definitely think that could be... Actually, you know what? That would be problematic. Unless the, like, official ruling is that everything needs to be documented very well. But then you're not wrong. Who's going and looking back at 3-month-old cases to determine whether or not that documentation was put forth?
Right now, offering exceptions to the rule rather than having a rule and finding those exceptions is easier to do, because then we can have officers that are forthcoming and honest be able to be, you know, get those exceptions.
Yeah, not wrong. I mean, I argued this with...
The thing is, we could say that it's something that maybe like Command Plus should be able to do, but there are certain members of Command Plus that should not be allowed to do that.
And then you're going to have people who step in and get elected as a warlord of certain locations and then go, well, I'm command because I can hire the sheriff, and then go into evidence lockers and take certain things.
Please don't tell me Pred's doing that.
No, but I can see that train of thought. That's why I said the exception to the rule is better than having the rule with exceptions that are looked into.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, I was telling Anna the other day that, like, do you know the whole jurisdictional drama bullshit? Okay, I genuinely, I feel like the easiest solution to that is not to change the legislation. Well, actually, I mean, partially, but to include a report every time, you know, there was a transfer of power, essentially, the moment you cross, like, for example, if Den, every time he wanted to take over a scene because it crossed into jurisdiction, there'd have to be a full-length report provided to marshals each and every time. And obviously, you know, the potential...
That's basically what Anna asked them to do, but I don't know if a lot of them ever actually did
No, the Speedy never did.
So back to what I was saying, if it was made a requirement in the piece of legislation, people aren't going to put in that effort. And that's how you start to curb the malicious compliance bullshit. The moment you require that they put in any level of effort to do so, they'll stop. And then that goes to show what their true intention was. Because if they didn't stop and they continued doing it, then yeah, I would argue maybe it was for legitimate reasons. But again, in that report, they would have to include those legitimate reasons and not just because it crossed into our jurisdiction. People are very allergic to effort. Let me tell you.
Yep, I saw that and I was like, okay, well, problem kind of solved. But you know, like, Drake told the commands and other people do not take jurisdiction thingy, and it kind of like just stopped there. And all we have to do is like, oh, okay. And all I have to do was like go and pull some people over, and that was it.
Yeah. I think another clear example is anytime there's any like large scale raid, for example, you'll have the people all like, you know, all super hyped in the moment. And then they get this large, you know, this large raid. But guess what? When it comes time for documentation, suddenly you look around and there's fucking nobody. There's nobody but you. Everyone wanted to be there in the moment. Everyone wanted to be there for the pursuit. Everyone wanted to be there for the fucking shootout. But the report...
Yeah, everyone wants to run inside the house to look in and see what it is, but no one wants to take pictures.
Exactly. Which is why, Daisy, you know this damn well. In Shift 3, it would always be the same few people. Now, Shift 3 has always been a different beast than most other shifts, to be clear. And most of us would never sort of skip out on doing shit like that. But the reality is, like, you need to be a certain kind of somebody to have the will to like actually follow something through from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it's not common.
And
It is
the
not
thing
common.
with Shift 3 as well back in the day is like I knew that everyone in Shift 3 was competent enough and was trained to document raids the same way that I could tell somebody, you go look over there and document everything and I'll deal with this bit over here and stuff would be fine.
Yeah.
But the way that stuff is right now, it's like I appreciate officers coming and helping and doing scene control and everything, but I do not trust their capabilities of documentation to actually let them go through and look through everything and document it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, in saying that, I also feel like a lot of it likely has to do with training, but unfortunately, like, you can set foundation level stuff, but raids and whatnot happen so infrequently that it's not really, like, you have to be there to experience it, which makes it so that a large-scale raid ends up being a lot of people's first time. So, you know, people are going to make mistakes. And even nowadays, it's still just not common. So, like, the training of it is going to be lacking.
The difference is that when it comes to lack of training, it's not lack of trying. It's chosen ignorance or laziness. That's when it becomes a problem. If someone makes a mistake, as long as they're willing to learn from it, I don't think anyone has a problem with ensuring that they learn going forward. Forward. Because at the end of the day, the reciprocal rate of crime, especially in San Andreas, from the last 2 weeks I've lived here, is exceptionally high. So you're going to have people committing those crimes again and again and again. And if you don't get them this time, you do them next time. And that's okay, as long as you're not being malicious.
Rhodes, can you look at a report for me? I want to get your opinion on some of this evidence.
Report number?
Incident 10129.
I'm going to clock off. I appreciate you all. It was good to meet you, Deputy Rhodes.
You as well. What's your name?
Skylar Sparks.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Nice
I
to
hope
meet
you
you
have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye,
Send
Bye,
Anderson
Jason.
out.
Oh my god, there's so many
alone.
arrests.
Yeah, there's a lot of arrests, but I want you to look at the photos in the list of evidence. That's like photo of evidence on pier 1 through 30. A standout one is 3 out of 30.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I should refrain from looking at this.
That's why I'm only asking you to look at a couple of pieces of photos.
Okay.
Okay, 10 out of 30.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I'm still... There's so fucking much. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the numbers again?
Okay, photo of evidence on pier, 3 out of 30.
Okay.
Photo of evidence on pier, 10 out of 30.
Okay.
Photo of evidence on pier, 12 out of 30.
Okay, which one? There's two.
The first one.
Poppin'.
Okay, and the one of just the casing?
Yeah, I think it's
Well, it's a
just a
vehicle fragment. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. There was another really dumb one. Oh, 27 out of 30.
Okay.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't have Olivia Copper reamed somebody to hell and back for those photos?
They really should have provided more like listen, bitch, I don't need to determine how many fucking pixels of a bee there are in this casing thing. I need to see like the general fucking area.
Yeah. Because I remember Copper, when she trained me, was like, you take the photo of the entire like viewfinder from your camera. So you have the entire area that you're in, you have the location, like you have the GPS marker in the top right. But this is something that people are doing a lot of. Like, I'm not gonna ask you to look through all the other photos, but they're all similar, where it is not the full context or the full, like,
So the only
photo.
thing I can possibly think of is, okay, so things were different before, right? We would take these photos and there would be a proper means of identifying However, I think the intent is that in situations like this, if and when they're called into question, VR is supposed to be utilized as a means of determining what is where, and recreating these scenes, because in VR you would be able to like very easily identify those pieces of evidence as like a certain thing, similar to how it was in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're way too fucking zoomed in, because listen, for the same reason I just said with VR, listen, just document that it was in this fucking general area. But even in VR, I'm gonna have to start fucking comparing the fucking floor of a roof to figure out where the fuck it was.
Yeah.
I mean, the other photos are better. Like if you look at like the 6 out of 30, which is for me right under the 3 out of 30, like, or the 4 out of 30, like those are far better. The zoomed in
But they're
ones,
definitely not to a standard that I would say was acceptable. Like they're better than the other ones that I pointed out.
definitely, yeah, definitely better. I guess they do have an overall photo of some things, but yeah, I do both. I will, similar to vehicles, I will do like an front, side, back, and then on the back I always zoom in to the license plate just to make sure like that's clear. But there's like a zoomed in photo like that in the event where there was like a couple pieces of evidence right on top of each other, like that would be okay, just to let you know, like, hey, there's multiple things here. But it's not necessary to zoom that far in for pieces of evidence.
Yeah, that is something that years ago I brought up as a problem with the then members of PNT, and their response was, well, they're not cadets anymore, so we can't do anything. And I was like, no, like, you don't stop teaching people because they're not cadets.
Right. No, that's like entirely okay. If teaching stopped after being a cadet, let me tell you, we'd have some problems.
Yeah.
Hold up.
That's why we do.
When the fuck did you get in the car?
When we
I told him to get in. Yeah.
I am. Holy fuck.
Rhodes, are you available for like 20 or 30 more minutes?
Yeah. Why?
Okay. Hey
Audit.
Daisy, you want to do an audit on him?
Sure.
Perfect.
The fuck
We're gonna
did
go
I
to a location
do?
and we're gonna do an audit on you, okay? Because I
Nothing.
feel like you can yap more.
What kind of audit?
About your just competency as an officer, and then your opinions on the PD as a whole.
Oh.
It's an
Oh,
audit.
he about to pull out the fucking
You can,
list.
yeah, you can unload as much as you want to.
Yo, you got
whatever
more
you
than
want.
30 minutes?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure. We have done one, which was 1 hour, so it's totally fine. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
these audits go for a long time. I fell asleep in one.
I know a place to go. It's a bit of a hike, though.
Okay. Did you bring the Scotty statue?
Fuck. It's at the
Oh,
office.
I got the baton. I got the baton of voice.
Okay,
Okay,
we can use baton.
The what of what?
Oh, actually, I got my crystal ball with me.
He straps a microphone to his baton.
Oh. Okay.
I'll use my crystal ball.
So we have some like little tiny Rode mics left over from like I bought some to give to Anita Manny to be our TikTok manager. So we
Not
just
the
strap that shit to
cemetery.
everything.
No.
Don't be alarmed. Trust me.
no.
I know a place where
No.
we will go. It's a bench.
Oh, this is perfect.
It's a bench. Trust me.
I got my witch's hat on.
It's we have to. I told you. Yes, I did. I told you it's a bit of a hike, but since it's your audit, I feel like we'll be learning a lot of stuff. So I think we need to prepare if we have to do the funeral.
And this is where we're gonna bury the PD.
What the?
Oh look, there's a microphone here.
Ha!
Oh my god, there actually is. What the fuck?
Oh wait, hold on. There's something else. There's also coins on the ground here.
Oh my
What
god.
the fuck?
Are
Oh
we
my god, I
sure?
need to do my laundry.
Maybe no.
No.
Maybe this is someone's offering, or
Yeah.
I mean, it
It's
might just
rude.
be their payment to the ferryman.
That too.
The microphone isn't a payment. Why do you think the ferryman would take a microphone? Oh, they put coins on the dead's eyes, or like in their mouth.
Oh, that's
Huh?
a lot of caskets that aren't underground.
Okay. Listen, we have to go up the stairs.
Are we going up the stairs?
Yeah.
Oh, I know where we're going.
Yeah, it's a very pleasant place.
Yeah, I agree.
No one ever disturbs.
Well, do you guys remember that one guy? Was his name? Was it Pierce? He used to work at the cemetery. I forget his name. Maybe something Pierce.
I don't know him at all.
Yeah, one time I went up there because I've used this place as like you know, away from everything place
Yeah.
before. And then one time I found a card that I was looking for flipped in the tree up there. So like that worked out.
I used to come up here to think after Michael Simone faked his death. And then one day I could have sworn that I saw Michael Simone pull up to me on a motorcycle.
Ooh.
Oh, this is perfect.
And then I thought I was crazy for months.
All right, do you want me to put my crystal ball down?
Sure. Who's recording?
This is my crystal
will, I
ball
guess.
because I'm all seeing.
Me.
That's your crystal.
Put in the middle.
Oh my god.
I think the microphone broke. I just looked in my pockets and it goofed.
Oh no.
That's fine. I have my all-seeing crystal ball.
Don't make me grab it.
Please don't. I can't afford another one right now.
It's
Okay,
so
let me
close.
Get the report started.
Oh boy. This is gonna be glorious.
Why do you say it like that?
Because we
Because
feel like
I-
you have a lot of tea.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're one of the oldest officers, and I feel like you have gone through every iteration where you would know what is wrong, what is good, what is, you know, everything.
Yeah. I probably have a decent amount of info.
Yeah, I could possibly fit you with Crystal too, because she's also gone around each shift, so you know,
She'd have a lot of info.
she would have a lot of info.
But so you do have to understand this. Oftentimes I feel like despite any prior drama, people may treat Crystal differently. Because Crystal is never like you know, Crystal never wants to upset anybody. And that's great, but at the same time people would use that as a means to like sidestep her if she was next in line to get whatever kind of you know, sort of malicious compliance bullshit that they're trying to do, and then go to the next person. So like it's possible that, you know, something wouldn't happen to her that would happen to the average, you know, officer.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So we're going to be conducting an audit. My name is Daisy Dukakis.
Hi.
Hi. And with me, I have Marshall Zano Lockhart and Robert Anderson. And Rhodes, do you just want to say your name?
Yeah, I'm Matt Rhodes. I'm a senior deputy in the BCSO.
Okay, what's your badge number?
390.
And he's not AI.
Are you AI?
I'm not AI.
Okay, how long would you say that you've been employed by the police department?
This iteration of the police department?
In general?
Oh, in general. Oh, many years. Many years. I mean, it's been almost a year now. God, I don't know. I don't have an actual answer, truthfully. 5, 6, 7, I don't know. A lot of years. Many years.
Okay, have you received any disciplinary actions by this department or the LSPD since I know you transferred?
Yes, I have.
What was it?
I received strike points for not filling out a report. Or I'm sorry, let me rephrase, disciplinary action points as for not filling out a report. I also received disciplinary action points as a result of me putting in a firearm into evidence that was not documented by the people who were tasked with documenting it. And come to find out, that was a hot gun related to a potential murder, but the gun wasn't the murder weapon, from my understanding. Something else was. But yeah, that came back on me. This was when the MDT had quite a few issues. And also the undoing of reports. And also the MDT being non-functioning many times back in the day. But nothing like I did something wrong in the sense of shooting someone I wasn't supposed to or anything to that extent. I ain't perfect. And I take responsibility for my actions. If I did wrong, you will hear it from me first.
Okay, have you given any disciplinary actions to anyone in the departments?
No. I've intentionally avoided any command or high command position.
Why have you avoided command and high command?
Because I've been in the police department far too long as a member of command and or high command, and I just want to do, sort of your run-of-the-mill stuff without having to deal with all of the drama associated with dealing with all of the police department's problems.
Okay, now, this is probably where the tea is gonna start. What is your opinion of the state of the PD as a whole?
As a whole?
Yeah, both the LSPD and the BCSO.
Well, I think there's, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 5. And at 4. 4.5. 4.5. And the reason I'd give it a 4.5 is because I don't think either of these departments will ever be able to succeed long term when there's a, sort of looming factor of every 90 days there could be a new rotation of high command, which I think is absolutely fucking absurd and should never happen. I don't think there can ever be a solid foundation built for either department if every 90 days the potential of new high command, whether that be a new sheriff, a new chief of police, exists. I think that will take a toll on the mental of people currently in those positions, resulting in them trying to push for things too quickly that need more time to actually, take effect. In fear that if they don't, then after the 90 days, they're going to look, not great because there wasn't much improvement. But the reality is, when you have departments of hundreds of people, it takes time for shit to change. And 90 days ain't enough. Hell, I would even say 6 months is too fucking quick. But 90 days is insanely fucking short and got no business fucking, being there as a... Every 90 days you could be replaced. It's stupid. Also, I think the two departments not seeing eye to eye. I think on certain things that's fine, but again, with the idea that every 90 days things could change or some things remain the same but others change, they're never gonna see eye to eye, and that's just, it's not a good thing when everything gets disagreed upon. What else? Question: are there going to be more specific questions regarding, because I don't know if I should just spill everything now, I
mean, I could tailor the questions to whatever it is that you say. So if you want to spill stuff now, just keep going.
Well, for me, it's I also don't believe that the mayor should have any place determining who the chief of police or sheriff is. I just, for the same reason, I don't believe citizens should be the ones voting for who should be leading these departments. Number one, I don't think they know what they want. Secondly, I don't think that they are in a position of knowing what's even required for these positions, and as a result should have no say in determining who gets put in these positions. And like, I don't like the idea of things being held over other people. Because again, who wants to be in a fucking position where every time you do something, it could be 100% correct. If the person who put you in that position doesn't like it, the idea of being replaced, that's just fucking absurd to me. Because we can sit here and say right now that the mayor has no control over the police department, but let's say Nino didn't like something Moss did. Again, hypothetical here. He could very easily say, well, do this or I'm just going to replace you. Then what? That is like very much so being indirectly in control of the police department. And that's no bueno. I also feel like there's too many people going down the route of like malicious compliance. Now, trust me, I am petty, okay? But I also know when there needs to be a cutoff where something needs to stop, and I feel like a lot of people don't know where that line is. I feel like they, well, actually, no, I disagree. I take that back. I feel like they know where the line is. They intentionally cross it to push whatever narrative they want, and then sit there, and when there's backlash as a result of them doing some stupid fucking shit, they sit there and go and cry in a corner when there's any sort of consequence associated under the guise of like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. What else? Oh, I also really fucking hate, and now I say this as somebody in Shift 3 who was part of the exception, okay? But when all that jurisdiction bullshit happened, and, you know, the you know, procedural stuff being added by the LSPD, and the announcement pushed forth by Moss, it bothered me very much so that Shift 3 was identified as, like, not being part of this jurisdiction bullshit. And the reason that bothers me is because that tells me that Shift 1 and 2 certainly didn't need it either. But again, under the guise of like, you know, just following suit with legislation, it was applied to 1 and 2. Which, if they were doing it specifically because of the legislation, 3 would have been applied to it. However, Shift 3 is very much so more like family than it is just coworkers. And as a result, even if that shit was done, I can guarantee you not a fucking single one of us would have followed any fucking stupid procedure that logically makes no fucking sense. And I also want it to be known that I filled out an anonymous form and signed it with Rhodes regarding that announcement.
Yeah, you did.
I did write that. And I would write it again. It is stupid and serves no purpose. It's so short fucking sighted. But you know what? Maybe that's what happens when you're only, you know, sort of mentally prepared for 90 days. Maybe that could be fixed. What else? Yeah, I don't know. If there's anything specific you want me to comment on, please ask. I'm an open book.
Okay. You kind of already touched on some of this, but in your opinion, what have been the failures of the departments, both PCSO and LS?
The cause of said failures, or just what the failures are?
Both.
Cause of the failures, again, I think there not being a solid foundation just under the guise of, like, you know, again, 90 days for any chief, as you know, sheriff, it doesn't matter, I think is a big concern, because there's no level of consistency, right? Like, how can you structure a department when in 90 days, completely out of your control, regardless of how good you are, you could no longer be in that position? I also think that that's one of the primary concerns, truthfully, and that the fact that it's somebody not in the police department determining this. How can you be in charge of essentially money and also the police department while not knowing the requirements of the police department, but making probably one of the most important decisions for the police department? And that applies to both BCSO and LSPD. Like, it's just, I'm just saying, who, as marshals, do y'all ever see a change every 90 days?
No, we just have Angel.
No? Okay, well, you know, if all we had was Bones, that'd be interesting. But we ain't got that. So again, right now, the departments are pretty much in panic mode as a result of the election. Bones has no fucking idea whether or not he's going to remain the sheriff. And not only that, but nobody has any idea as to who would replace him in the event where he's not. Now, I can't speak on behalf of, like, Moss. I rarely ever speak to her, but, like, I imagine it probably doesn't sit well with her that, you know, 90 days from when she was put in, she could be gone. In fact, it's probably not even 90 days, considering they don't have to immediately make a decision, right? So, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot that is happening. Also, I think there's too much legislation. I don't know a single officer, myself included, who knows every piece of legislation. There is too damn much. Okay. And by that, there's, like, the jurisdictional bullshit. I'm sorry. It's fucking stupid. Absolutely fucking stupid. There is so much. If you gave me 2 minutes to speedrun just the fucking names of the pieces of legislation, I couldn't get to the end before 2 minutes of just reading fucking titles. That is wild. That is wild. We struggled to get cadets to learn case law. Case law is just one of the pieces of legislation now. Just one. And the fact that cadets can remember that is impressive on its own. Okay? On its own, that's impressive. But there are, let me count. Let me bust out the counter, okay? One moment. I have to, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68 pieces of legislation. Tell me why the fuck that's necessary. How did we operate with just what equated to, like, this is the statute of fucking limitations, these are the case laws we take into effect, to 68, and there's probably, it's possible I miscounted. Maybe it's 67, maybe it's 69. Who the fuck knows, okay? But it is too fucking damn much to expect hundreds upon hundreds of people to follow every piece of legislation, to know what piece of legislation falls under what jurisdiction, when there is so fucking much to consider. Pretty soon, the fucking legislation is going to be like, the sky is fucking blue. If there's no double solid yellow line in the center of the road, X, Y, and Z can happen. We don't need to know this fucking bullshit. This shit needs to be consolidated. It's too damn much. Especially when I'm sorry for going on a rant here. I fucking arrested someone for having, well, not for having a bag of weed, but they had a bag of weed. And I thought to myself, wait, that's illegal. I look at the penal code. The penal code under the charge tells me to reference the dosage legislation. I reference the dosage legislation, and it indicates any amount of weed is illegal. So I'm like, oh, wait, but also didn't it get legalized? So what do? I look at legislation, took a little while to load, you know, and Then the follow-up legislation to the dosage guideline stuff was a piece of legislation indicating that weed is now legal, despite the fact that the penal code had us reference a piece of legislation that was outdated because the other piece of legislation countered it and made it legal. It's too damn much. It's too much. Okay.
Okay. So most of this, I would assume, is probably going to be the whole 90 days things, but in your opinion, what could be improved in the department?
Mayors lose control of any ability to pick the chief of police and or sheriff or any position within the police department. The reason I think that is necessary is because if anything was truly wrong, then from my understanding, marshals have a duty to sort of step in and resolve those situations. So if nothing is going wrong, then the reality is no position needs to change. Now, do I think there needs to eventually be a shakeup? Sure. But again, I don't think it's necessary for that to happen every 90 days. And again, I don't think people who have no knowledge of the fucking police department at all get to make a decision of who runs the fucking police departments. That's stupid. That's real dumb. That like telling somebody who went through bankruptcy they should run a bank. I mean, that's like a very egregious example, but like, you know, I'm trying to make a point here. Also, okay, so regarding improvements, unless deemed by the marshals that either of the higher ups in those departments need to change, they should not change. Further, I think leaving it up to marshals creates a very very well and properly documented paper trail regarding why, right? Like if the marshals provide a high command with actionable things that need to change, that's great, right? There's something on paper, but the fact that a mayor can just decide all willy-nilly, you know what? New sheriff, new chief of police, I just don't like them, is stupid. And again, back to the whole, like, it isn't just the 90-day thing as much as it is people. It's a combination of both. People being in control of those positions and it potentially happening every 90 days, and legislation being way too damn much. I'm telling you now, quiz anybody on half of our fucking legislation, they're not gonna know. They will not know because it's too damn much. Remember, we couldn't get cadets to remember fucking case laws, yet we expect them to remember close to 70 pieces of legislation. Separate pieces that you can't just search. I can't just search marijuana and have anything including marijuana come up. I gotta search for shit in the title.
Okay, all that has kind of covered if you could change things. So what is your opinion of the current training within the departments?
Considerably better than it was before. So for example, when we were originally brought on as a skeleton crew, it took, I would say, like 2-3 months ago is where we should have been like 8 months ago. And I say that because, like, we were taking on people who on their applications would say that they were experienced. And then the example I give all the time is think of a 2-lane highway where cadets are these vehicles. And instead of, you know, taking on people with experience that we could sort of, you know, I'm not going to say expedite, but they didn't require too much training. We opted to pick the equivalent of fucking those wide load carrying a fucking nuclear missile on the back. So that one fucking cadet took up both fucking lanes, meaning that the people who but didn't need that much space on that 2-lane highway couldn't pass them. because we had to dedicate all the fucking resources to people without experience. Now, thankfully, again, I can only really speak on behalf of Shift 3, but thankfully that has like mostly been resolved, and we are at this point even now still prioritizing people with experience because, like, you know, we've been doing this nonstop for 10 months at this point, and people have been burnt out since 8 fucking months ago. So like, you know, things have gotten better on that front. Also, Shift 3 specifically operates more as a UPD, and so recruitment is across the board for Shift 3. And so when we have academies, it's BCSO and LSPD. And truthfully, that should be happening, in my opinion. The thing is, there, you know, with there being people who are so sort of against each other and do anything for the sake of argument, I don't know if that can work elsewhere. But if it works fine in Shift 3, ain't nobody can tell me it couldn't potentially work there. I don't understand. I mean, hell, even now, like, we bring people on and we're pretty much replacing people who have just stopped showing up. Like, it's a meat grinder. And trust me, half of y'all fucking know what that feels like.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you were the exclusion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't believe you said that.
Well, I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, you can be.
You want a real one, Desmi?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I basically stopped training people forever ago because it was a meat grinder. I was hiring people that said that they would be around for 40 hours a week and they were around for 3, or just stopped showing up in general.
Yup.
Why can't the whole PD just operate like Shift 3?
Well, so you do have to consider that neither the mayor or neither mayors are typically around during that time. And so it's probably easier for shit to fly under the radar during those periods of time. But like, I'm just saying, if it works so well for us, I don't know what the excuse is elsewhere. Outside of, again, people who shouldn't be in charge of making decisions for a police department being in charge of making those decisions for a police department.
This is coming from the current, like, obviously these are my opinions, but, you know, I've seen what it's like coming from there, right? So, and seeing it from the marshal's standpoint of view, it's
yeah,
it's quite crazy.
I unfortunately
how it is.
think under the current setup of all of the departments, I mean, I think the reality here is, like, if I was in a position and if, let's say I was the chief of police, right? And Nino tells me, listen, either you do this or I'm just going to find somebody else who will. If that is the lesser of two evils, guess what? I'm probably going to make that decision to keep the remainder of the police department in check as opposed to watching it burn to the fucking ground, right? And I think most people are willing to do that. And I think it's, you know, sort of the noble decision, if you will. But at the same time, it's such a double-edged sword, because if you allow that to happen once, you allow it to happen consistently moving forward. And then the chief of police, who should be in charge of the police department, is just a puppet for the puppet master, who is the mayor.
Can I pause the recording for a moment so I can bring up my opinion on something? Or can we just
Sure.
edit it out of the recording?
We're not gonna edit it. Oh,
Okay,
can
I'll
pause
bring
it.
it up after the conversation then.
okay. Have you noticed anything where the mayors have been puppet masters?
So, okay, it's hard to say directly, because Andy was, like, very hands-off with BCSO. Prior to that, like, have I been present for situations like that? No. But I think, like, the random announcement from Moss, like, it would be difficult to convince me that that wasn't something from Nino, just on the basis that it came like months after that piece of legislation was put into effect. So it seems silly that it would be brought up at some random point as like a reinforcement. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't there day one, regarding how the police, the LSPD was going to handle it, why was it suddenly there months later? But also, hey, by the way, not shift 3. I don't know. If you're asking specifically if I've been present for something where the mayor specifically said to do something or else, no. I think most, if not all of those conversations would be done in private amongst both the mayor and, you know, whoever's in charge of said department. And I have never heard anything of Andy doing that with Bones, for example.
Okay, when it comes to the training program again, what would you say the successes of it are and the failures of it?
Ooh, successes? Well, I mean, we're recruiting more and more, so like that's progress, and we're finally taking on people with experience who we can sort of quickly turn around and get them sort of prepped to also deal with like the next batch of people. And again, I speak on behalf of the very biased Shift 3 that operates as UPD. And that is a success, in my opinion. Both the LSPD and BCSO working together there. Failures, it's hard for me to say for like current stuff. But in the past, just like the general lack of recruitment, half of which stemmed from not getting responses from high command regarding who can and can't be accepted. It seems that a success now is that we don't necessarily need said approval anymore. We're like much more free regarding recruitment, and regarding failures, again, taking on people who didn't actually have much experience and dedicating way too much fucking time and resources on them.
Okay, I have some questions just, you know, on your basic personal competency as a police officer.
Okay.
So I have no faith or no doubt that you would be able to answer these very easily. First one, what is the difference between RS and PC?
With PC, you have evidence of said crime. It's not like somebody just, you know, approached you and was like, oh, some guy was in that 24/7 and robbed you have a fucking recording of the bitch robbing the place, you know, dressed exactly the same. You got the fucking CCTV footage with the license plate of the car that they currently in. Yeah, evidence the difference.
Have you written a subpoena and or a search warrant?
Wait, no, I haven't.
Do you know how to write them?
Yeah, I know. Okay, to be clear, I haven't looked at like the required like specific formatting, but considering like they are on a foundation level, not much different. Like they can't really differ much. I would have no problems writing a subpoena or a search warrant, or an arrest warrant for that matter. I just ain't, you know, I already explained this to y'all earlier. I've written one arrest warrant in 10 months. Come at me.
What's your opinion on your department's SOPs?
I have not been made aware of any like differing SOPs from what is standard. I mean, the only comparison I would have is like, you know, stuff that used to exist before in comparison to now. Like, I'm not kidding. 90% of our SOPs are identical to how they used to be, except uniforms have changed. Strike points have been changed to disciplinary action points, and high risk stops used to be called felony stops. And from my understanding, that's on the basis that just because you're pulling someone over doesn't mean a felony was committed, blah, blah, blah. But outside of that, they are mostly the same.
Okay, just kind of some random other questions. Earlier we talked about that VR system. How many officers do you think fully understand that VR system?
Ooh. I don't know, truthfully. Realistically, it's not often that they're utilized outside of large-scale situations, just because truthfully, most times we got these people down in the cells. They're looking to be processed. It is what it is. I don't really know how else to explain that. But like, the VR system is very useful for investigation of a large scale situation. Also, potentially just a long term situation, like a long term investigation, as opposed to, hey, we have these people in custody. We're going to use it now, because you are now scanning and running over a scene from start to finish again. So like it, again, typically not utilized when people are in custody. However, if we're writing warrants, stuff like that, then it's typically utilized as a means of like getting a better image of what was going on. So it's a great system. I mean, it does have its flaws, but it's very useful.
Okay, is the VR system something that people go over in training at the academy, or do you know?
So I unfortunately haven't been present for academies in which that stuff is being gone over. In fact, unfortunately, due to scheduling, I haven't been at many of the recent academies up until yesterday, day before, a few days ago. So I can't say. What I can tell you is that the first few academies that we did have where I was present, it was definitely, it was gone over.
Are there quote unquote duplicate pieces of evidence?
Define duplicate. Like, obviously double, right? But like, what are you referring to here specifically?
Let's say that I shoot a gun here, and then I go down to where our car is, and I shoot the same gun, same situation. Would you consider those duplicate, or would you log all of it?
I personally would log all of it. Because from my understanding, each of those pieces of evidence that we are submitting are going to be, you know, their location logged for each specific one. However, there's a finite amount of spots in those evidence lockers, which makes it very problematic, because you are now splitting one situation into several within reports, but not able to combine all of them because there's too much. So, no, I wouldn't say there's duplicates, but also sometimes we have to work within the means that we got, and sometimes it's just it's not practical, because you run into an overage of evidence that can be problematic.
Okay, if you run into one of those situations where the evidence locker is full, what would you do?
I think the only solution to that is creating an additional report, because the only way that those pieces of evidence can be viewed in our VR system is if they are placed within a report. Because you have to be in the report menu to open VR. So you would have to now separately look at two different reports going over the same, we'll say, types of evidence regarding the same types of casings, projectiles, without seeing any of the prior stuff, because you are now in this new VR setting with only the new pieces of evidence. If it were up to me, I would probably do my best, because large-scale situations typically start in one area, stem to another. I'd probably try my best to consolidate all of one scene into one, all of another into a separate report if we started running into the logistical nightmare of there being too much evidence and not enough space. But outside of that, I mean, sometimes it's even hard pinpointing those pieces of evidence within the locker. It becomes very complicated and sort of convoluted.
Would you say that it is common for officers to not go and collect evidence of shootings?
I don't know if I would say it's common. However, it's not necessarily. That's hard to answer, because there's no one size that fits all, right? Like, what I mean by that is, if there was a large scale shooting, even not a large scale shooting, even if it was relatively small, but it occurred in an area, let's say in Little Seoul, let's say at the Billabong, where the BBMC reside. Unfortunately, we can't just send a few units down to collect evidence in situations like that due to officer safety. And I don't want officer safety. I hate, in fact, when officer safety is used as like a get out of jail free card. But the reality here is, if we go down to those areas with the few units that we may have available that aren't actively on calls, we're very likely going to get shot. It's happened many, many times. And even if we didn't have units on active calls, oftentimes we are heavily outnumbered by gangs in these areas. So going down to BBMC turf is just it's not very feasible without risk of officers getting shot. So to be clear, I wouldn't say it's common in the sense of like, oh, it happens every time, as much as I would say more often than not, if it does happen, there's a justified reason. But yeah, that's where I stand.
Do you two have any questions?
Nope.
No.
Good.
I think he spilt everything that I would have asked anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If some other questions come up, we might contact you and just ask a couple other questions about your opinion on things. And if you have anything that you want to bring us in the future, you can feel free to call either one of us.
Actually, I do have a question.
Ask away.
If the opportunity to become a chief or sheriff came up, would you be interested?
Girl, I don't even want to be a senior officer, a senior deputy. But here I am, a senior. Yep, I was forced just like I was in LSPD. But you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being a senior, but I do not want... I don't want to be command, and I don't want to be high command. Until the foundation level of shit is, like, structurally sound. And I don't mean, like, Bones and Moss have to fix the foundation of the PD, as much as I mean... the mayors need to not be in fucking control of the departments. I would never even I wouldn't consider either position at all. I think it's silly to consider it, given the power is sort of out of your hands. Like it, I wouldn't want to deal with that bullshit. I'm sorry, but much like I told you before, you know, if I was in those positions, which I wouldn't be because I would never accept said position in the current state. The last thing I want is to have to pick the lesser of two evils because some mayor has no idea what he's fucking talking about. If I was in the position, though, would I choose the lesser of two evils?